All right. Hello, home service pros. Welcome to the Battle Plan Marketing Podcast, episode number 154. Today, we have a special guest on the show, Mr. Brett Neal, husband and wife team of High Velocity Accounting out of Fresno, California. They work with the trades. So welcome to the show there, Brett.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on and schooling the listeners out there, helping them out. So tell us what you do, who you do it for, where you do it.
My name is Brett Neal. Definitely a advocate of the trades. Used to be I was an aircraft mechanic, blue collar meets white collar. Ended up becoming a CPA, earned my certified public accountant's license out of here at Fresno State. But always just had a passion of being hands-on. And after 10 years of accounting, I connected with the trades. One of our first clients was in HVAC, and it was just amazing how quickly the relationship grew. And I found that I just really got passionate about how it was that they were interpreting the numbers. So I learned something from the trades myself. And I was able to kind of turn that around and put it into information that I hope is useful and we're looking to share and help entrepreneurial tradesmen that are wanting to know their numbers, have consistent accounting, put that together for them in a process. It's clean and efficient and doesn't take away from your day.
Yeah. Great. Well, every business, it's all about the numbers, right? Doesn't matter what business you're in. But for some reason, the trades seem to have more problems than many. So take us through what you uncover usually when you taking on a new client.
So typically clients come to us at the point of frustration. They've come to recognize that they don't have their numbers either timely, consistently, or in a meaningful way. Maybe the information is just kind of scattered. And depending on who they're working with, typically for us, they're working with an outside agency and they've kind of lost contact with them. So they're not getting the communication that they want from their accountant or bookkeeper. And then they don't know their numbers and they're kind of waiting too long at a time when things are pivotal. Either prices are changing, they know to make a move on the price book. Do we have the right fee structure out for our employees to keep them and make their lives better? And I kind of lost thought on that one. Sorry for a minute, Mark.
No, that's cool. That's great. That's great. So let's start with that. So they come to you, they got problems, right? They were having cash flow problems or pricing or just profit problems. Let's start with, so how often should they be reviewing numbers and how, all of us, right? How often should we be reviewing numbers and what numbers should we be looking at?
And then you kind of brought me back to my thought too, is what do we see? Right. So we typically see basically incomplete financial records, profit and loss that doesn't have all of the information in a balance sheet that doesn't necessarily tie out. Liabilities and assets don't equal equity kind of thing. So when should you be reviewing your numbers? Well, let's be real. At the very least, once a month, after a sort of close. I mean, I don't need to lay down the law here. It can be a soft close, more or less. But what we're looking for is a reconciled balance sheet, understanding our accounts receivable, recognizing that if we have accounts payable, that it exists so that we can account for cash flow. And then we want that clean, consistent profit and loss statement that has percentages in the next column. So column A is number, column A is name, column B is numbers, column C is percentages, so that we can look for that pattern. If we can do that on a month-to-month basis, then typically when I have conversations with owners, they know the differences. Oh, we didn't have our calls. Our conversion rate was down. We did invest more in inventory or something like that. That explains the higher cost of goods sold. So if we can explain the differences of what's going on in the business as we're trying to grow it, then once a month is good.
I like it. Do you find expenses are out of control, like that's the bigger problem, or that their price book is not accounting for all expenses and that's off? Which of those two seems to be the more common for you?
It makes me laugh because I do have a client that has an account for recurring fees that they just want to look out for. So just be sure to put that in my recurring fee account so that they can look and decide if they don't want that anymore. I tend to not see really out of hand expenses. Most operators understand their fixed costs or overhead to some degree. They recognize they have rent. They recognize they have insurance payments. They know they got to pay for the gas in the truck. So they're already thinking about that kind of stuff. And they're not trying to, put in the fancy pool table and things like that to kick off like, oh, look how great this place is. They know they need to go out and run jobs, take care of the employees. So it does relate more to price book, typically speaking. But around that, I feel like, and Mark, what price books, what CRMs have you seen or do you usually work with?
Most, a lot of companies are House Call Pro, Service Titan, Jobber, these kinds of things. We use the high level or lead connector CRM
Okay.
for lead capture, sales and marketing, really on that side. So yeah, there's a lot of House Call Pro, a lot of Service Titan.
So typically our customers too, predominantly House Call Pro and Service Titan. And I do see variances between owners. I don't necessarily, I'm not Nexstar. I'm not trying to share someone else's information and say, hey, this is how their price book was built out. But when the variances that I do see is probably a lack of input. Service Titan, for example, you can have burden rate, you can have hours on jobs, you start building out your systems and having options. When I don't see that in our price book, then I get a little worried like, hey, how are we pricing this? When do we recognize that prices have changed? And most owners have some sort of process. They're like, hey, look, we're looking at the invoices every day. Um, I personally export the price book and change the prices and then import it. So someone is watching it to some degree. Based on the volume, obviously that can get out of hand pretty quickly. So
Nice.
yeah, I would say it relates really. And then the art, there's just art of the price book, putting
The
together
art,
your
I like it. That's a
right.
book in itself, the art of
Yeah,
the price book.
yeah. I mean, putting something out there for your tech to be able to share to a client
Yeah,
uh, in a package with the right solution. There's got to
right.
be some sort of art around that or practice at least.
Yeah, so a nicer presentation, good, better, best. I think Profit Rhino is another sort of presentation only that can connect to your CRM. Of course, the higher end CRMs have it. I take it back. Some guys are just on QuickBooks, right? So, what do you say to those gents out there?
It depends. There's I'm not against. I'm for and against. I hate to say this, right? I do believe QuickBooks in itself should just be a general ledger system. It does too much, and if you're trying to use it as a CRM, build your invoices, have your price book, and it's totally capable of doing that. It's just it still has to be taken care of and managed, much like Service Titan or House Call Pro. Somebody has got to be kind of looking at the price book. So it's not impossible, but correct. At that same time, there's really no presentation tool. But you can still create your invoices. You can still have packages. You can build up jobs, with your units and the materials that go into it. And if you're looking at your prices, if you're looking at your profit and loss statement on a consistent basis, and to kind of dive into that a little bit, Mark, is I would consider pacing yourself, meaning either on a weekly or daily basis. So, hey, what is our break even per day? What is our break even per week?
Mm,
So that you can track along and not necessarily have to worry about what your profit and loss statement is doing, but you should know in order to hit our numbers, we had to have this certain amount of calls, we had to run this many jobs, and we had to convert this many jobs at the
yeah,
end of the day.
yeah.
If you're doing that, the worst part about doing those is on day one that doesn't happen. So it tends to kind of beat people up a little bit. Like, what's the point of doing a budget when it doesn't even come to fruition? But over time it
It's a
does, and
goal.
over time it gives us trends, and we start to see it, and you're
Yeah,
able to make the changes and pivot.
I like it. I like it. So yeah, I like the attitude there, Brett. You can make anything work. So work with what you got, I guess, with goals to improve over time, or get more tools that make the jobs a little easier to do. So it sounds like you work a lot with their price book. Do you help them price that out and show them things that are not included, or?
No, because see, I don't know if I have it here behind me, but definitely a big fan of Service MVP and Joe Crisera, if you know the guys over there, and he has the options and building out the solutions around that. It just gets me back to that. I believe a little bit is presentation and art. So as long as you're covering fixed costs and you're heading towards your break even. I don't know what happens for the tech, selling tech, between the owner and the selling tech at the end of the day. Definitely not part of that call by call situation and what makes that magic happen.
Gotcha.
It's will I help build out a price book? Not necessarily, because we're not naming elbows and 90 degrees and that kind of stuff.
Right.
There's a profit rhino or something. There's already something kind of built out for that. What I do want to help is the hurdle, like your hurdle rate, your burden rate, and time and efficiency. I feel like if I can kind of get an owner to start inputting that data or capturing it, then we can really look at downtime, the efficiency of the staff, and then setting parameters or KPIs, I guess, around that stuff. But that opens up its whole can of worms, which is leadership and management and talking to your team and being able to share the numbers to what degree you want to or are comfortable with, and letting them know why the company's trying to do what it is.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So an advocate of at least partially sharing numbers with the staff. Yes.
I think I think you absolutely have to,
Yeah.
in order to really understand where the ship is heading. That each person needs to understand their part and their role and why it's happening. So
yeah. Do you get into the? Go ahead, Brett.
Oh, I was
Sorry.
gonna say it may not resonate to every person on the same level. Some people may not really be interested.
Yeah.
Other people are going to look very curiously, like why is that number that and my number's this.
Right.
But at some degree, the only way to kind of say, hey, if we don't hit this many, you can't say, hey, our goal is to do $1 million this month and expect everyone to get on board. But what you can do is show them how their pay structure is getting them to where they want to be via those calls and conversion rates and the profit and financial statements.
Nice segue to exactly where I was going. So, do you get into performance pay or just pay in general and suggest alternatives to business owners? Or
that's a tough one. So, and there's a lot of great companies out there, as you know, like CEO Warrior, Nextstar, the Profit Group, that are advising clients and might have kind of a more hands-on. Like I said, I do enjoy blue collar, but I've never ran an HVAC business. I
gotcha.
haven't had to necessarily make those payments. So to advise a client it on a certain pay structure, what I tend to do is I probably am more cautious. It's like, hey, do we have enough volume to make this change? Do you have the right employee that you could maybe test this option with if you wanted to do pay for performance? Maybe the next employee that you bring on, could we consider kind of looking at it for them? But right now, typically our typical clients are in the 3.5 to 5 million and then $10 million range.
Yeah.
Once you're around 10 to 15 million, I do feel like there probably needs to be more people in the office with you, like on staff doing day-to-day accounting and bookkeeping. Kind of hard for us to keep up at that point. But with that growth group of clients, we want to make sure that everything's in the right bucket right now. We want to make sure that the profit margin is because materials and equipment are at the right percentage level, that our labor is in the right percentage level, whether you're using contract labor or employees. And if you want to test it and kind of see how that moves the needle, we can show you the data.
I like it. Yeah. We all stay in our lane. Stay in our lane, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. I see you giving away or offering a free ebook, and which seems to be geared more for HVAC biz owners. Can you speak to that a little bit, Brett?
Yeah, we need to rewrite that ebook. It's probably a little bit dated, but it's it really when I talk to owners when we're meeting with new clients, I kind of try to describe like what it is we're trying to do, and it really is around this 4M framework. Part of it, the M was just to keep the conversation consistent, but it works as we fill in these slots. The first one is maintenance. Don't get out of the truck just to become an accountant. Accounting is tedious and monotonous. Yes, you can do it, but don't beat yourself up when the numbers aren't landing in the right spot or you don't know why the system doesn't work. Much like how I enjoy accounting and I've kind of figured out how to make all the mapping and connections work. I'm not an HVAC or a plumber, right? A capacitor, like people just start laughing. Don't stop talking, Brett. So So let me spare you the trouble. Let's take care of the maintenance. Let's get all the data captured, either bank feeds or taking pictures of receipts, whatever makes it efficient for your operation.
Right.
And then we can have the metrics. So then we have our weekly close or monthly close, where we can sit down and compare the financial statements, balance sheet, cash flow, profit and loss, compare that to booking rate, conversion rate, all those things that are really going on in the business, and have our KPIs around that. And then once we're able to do that on a monthly basis, look at consistency, see patterns, how the budget was based on the last 3 years. It's based on the number of calls and runs that the company can do. Then you can have the third end, which is your management meeting. Really be able to dive into why did we discount this much last month? Are we closing our jobs on time? Is there someone that's watching each invoice come through Service Titan? You kind of have that oversight. And then the last one is money. I know we talk about EBITDA. You always hear that one quite a bit.
Right.
Somebody's probably trying to grow a business and find out its value. I also talk about EAT, earnings after tax. So I want to give people the big picture, make sure that they understand how much money is really left after paying your debt service and taxes and what you can do with that. There should be some fun money, maybe some retirement. If somebody's looking to leverage themselves, perhaps they own rental real estate. There's a bigger picture in the tax side of it. And that's where high velocity accounting, my wife Sisha is also a CPA. That's kind of where we give that whole big picture kit and caboodle.
Yeah, there's more than just a business quite often for the business owner. Like you say, they've got real estate holdings or, who knows what. So that's good. So I like you mentioned on KPIs, booking rate, closing rate, all these kinds of things. And I imagine after working with a lot of trades, you got a pretty good grip on like averages there for, so if your booking rate is not X, then, we need to work on, Y and Z, right? So let's talk about, if you don't mind, what are some of the most important KPIs, would you say, and maybe, a thing or two they could look at to improve them?
Well, perfect is Service Titan, the dashboard. You got that booking rate and conversion rate right in front of you.
Yep.
I hear a lot of stuff about booking rate. A lot of people are getting phone calls that are spam or they're return calls, not necessarily callbacks. So getting that number just alone dialed in and just being consistent with it. We hear 85 to 90% is a good booking rate. Traditionally, what I see across most Service Titan boards is around 45%. Yep. So I don't dig into the details of what necessarily is happening behind there, whether somebody's clicking it as an opportunity call or a spam or whatever reason. But I think that, definitely diving in and understanding the reason you're getting your calls and if they're converting is pretty key performance indicator.
Yes.
And again, I hear the 85 to 90%. Why not? Well, I mean, exactly why not? Is the phone ringing for the right reasons?
Right.
But after that, like that's kind of the business operations.
Right.
What you do in those operations is then told in the profit and loss statement. So the story kind of unfolds on the profit and loss statement of all the work that you've done in the last month. And that's where we look into your gross profit margin, which a healthy financial statement is 50% gross profit margin, 25% general administrative overhead expenses with a 25% net profit. That is very overly gross stated, too overly simplified, but gross revenue minus your cost of goods sold, which should include direct labor and materials and equipment, minus your general and administrative expenses, which is insurance, administrative staff, probably, the building and automotive, things like that. And then hopefully some training and taking care of the employees. And that would leave you with a 25% net profit. Traditionally, that's seen as a pretty healthy net profit. And where you're going to see that number vary typically is in the marketing. If we're growing the company and we're heavily investing in marketing, we're not going to have 25% net profit necessarily. Right. But as long as cash flow is covering that and we still have room to cover our debt service, then that's where you play around. I don't mean to say go give all your money to Google. That's not what I mean by advertising and marketing. And we're
Right.
definitely seeing a big surge in that right now. Yelp and Google taking a big chunk of cash. And
Yeah.
are those converting?
Yeah. Yeah. And for those out there, so I've been getting schooled that in an election year, ads, the price for attention goes way up, and the attention to you and your business way down. So it's a good time for database reactivation campaigns, things like that. Yeah, direct mail maybe to the customers, going back to customers for repeat business, referrals, things like that. Do you identify that at all, Brett? You're seeing not enough repeat business, or do you dive into any of those kind of numbers at all? Or
Not typically with my clients. Conversations like they usually have a staff where they kind of have that like that stuff,
more
the
on the
email
marketing
marketing stuff
side?
that you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah,
But they're talking about it. They're rehashing. They've got some sort of follow up campaign. I don't know. And a lot of my clients are out of state, and it's hard for me to recognize the area and kind of it would.
yeah,
That's where I do feel like I miss out at times. It'd be great to. I wish I could visit more of my clients' offices and spend some time there to get a feel of the
yeah,
locale, because I'm sure that does vary from place to place.
yeah. Definitely has a major impact too. So, how about the profit first? Are you a fan of that system where we're taking money out, putting it into separate accounts, paying ourselves first, our own salary, our own profit, and really putting maybe some pressure on those numbers?
I mean, it definitely makes sense. There's times we use the envelope system just here at home, just to tuck the money away and know that I have it.
Yep.
Um, I feel like sometimes it's kind of it might be at the end of the day, you're selling their companies on gap to it.
Right.
Um, Full disclosure, I was actually a profit first member for a little while. It just for me, it's a lot of bank accounts and a lot of shuffling
It is a
numbers.
lot of bank accounts, a lot of shuffling. I found I'm on the system, and I found it forced me to look at my numbers. Initially in the very beginning, it's like, oh wow, these numbers are not working out the way I thought they were supposed to. So I started looking for where the problems were. So yeah,
Yeah, like I love that idea around it exactly. Kind of in a sense, it makes you back into it. It's like, hey, they said, hey, here's typical margins and ratios, and if you want to
right,
get to this number, you have to have this number, and
right,
that definitely like clears up a picture. Then just break it down a little bit more. Okay, well, what's our average ticket, and how many jobs we got to run, and what makes all that kind of stuff happen? Get very
yep,
granular.
yeah. Just take it backwards, and you'll find where the problem is. Right.
Right, right.
Just like investigating a water heater or something, right? What would you say the top three mistakes us business owners make, Brett, as far as when it comes to accounting and managing our numbers, bookkeeping?
Well, okay. Well, the biggest one is abdicating, which is just putting it off on someone else and
Mm,
thinking that it's getting taken care of. Um, in no way can you do that, and I think you hear that around marketing as well,
yeah,
right? And that's just being a business owner with it, basically everything.
yeah,
Unfortunately, nothing can go from from without your view to some degree. So um, don't just think that the numbers are getting done. Do you have a process of making sure that somebody's reporting to you on that day that they said they would report it, and that they're consistent and flowing? You don't necessarily have to dive into the reconciliations and know all the details and transactions that happen behind it, specifically on the sides. But yeah, number one would be just abdicating. Number two would probably be placement. Um, 5 different accounting firms, 5 different chart of accounts.
I see.
So how condensed or how big, should it go here? Should it go there? Sometimes doesn't matter if it's 0.1%. Are we spending too much time worrying about it? My big thing is look, let's get that ratio, let's get the consistency going. And then once we see that we're out of the margins, if we see that we're out of the margins for some reason, let's dive into that.
Yeah, I
I
like
don't
that.
know. The third one, probably just not having someone on their side, probably not having just the right person on their side to give that accountability of the financial side of the business.
Yeah, a consultant, somebody who to talk numbers to, who knows numbers.
Right. Yeah. Inside or outside, inside consultant or outside,
Yeah,
just someone that does understand the numbers and can kind of walk you through it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. How about Brett? Walk me through the difference between a controller and an accountant, and when would I use one versus the other?
You got me all fired up over this conversation. But I try not to get too into it too much. And it has nothing reflection of anybody. They're just roles. And I feel like I'm a person who keeps military time. So 1600 to me is efficient, right? As opposed
Nice.
to, right. So if there's a title that I just kind of just shows like, not where you're at on the pecking level, but just where your jobs are. Traditionally, CFO and a controller, they're not the same person. CFO may not even have a CPA license, not that they didn't go through accounting. They're more worried about finance. They're looking at market data more so. And I realize this changes from company to company, but the title is chief financial officer. They're typically elected by a board. It's in a corporation. It's kind of a specific job. The controller is doing that, controlling accounting, typically controlling the accounting department, making sure that everything's firing off in the right way and that they're landing in the right dates and going into the right periods and right sections. The bookkeeper then would be the person fulfilling those obligations, making sure putting those documents and numbers into the right spot, journal entries, that kind of stuff. So I think that's for the most part. An accountant and CPA, I mean, those are the kind of the CPAs tend to do taxes. CPAs are the only ones that can do audits. With them and lawyers. So, but if you're going to get your financial statements audited, it's because you're either trying to get a loan, a major loan, or selling.
Would an audit be like the first step in trying to correct my numbers and hire, a professional like yourself to, start getting everything in line?
When you think audit, Mark, have you been through like an audit or?
I actually have not. No.
Oh, okay. I just didn't want to dive into that one too fast. So when I think audit, I am pretty much talking kind of like that public company level.
Oh, I
That's
see.
a full financial statement audit. And when we use that term, we kind of got to be careful. So audited financial statements, then reviewed financial statements, and then compiled financial statements.
I see.
Typically, compiled financial statements is what a bookkeeping service, an in-house, is going to have, just management use only to some degree. The first step for looking at financial statements and for looking into the books and records, if you have QuickBooks Online or Intact, something like that, Xero, it's going to be kind of sharing access with the accountant and having them just dig in through. Typical high level, QuickBooks has a thing in the background where I can just see in the client's file when the last time everything's been reconciled, how many transactions haven't been how big of a mess it is, and just a high level pretty quickly. The bodies are hidden in the balance sheet, so go straight to your balance sheet. I'm looking looking for negative accounts. Like I'm looking to see if it's negative cash. It should be positive. I'm looking for undeposited funds. If that's an extremely large number, I know there's an issue there. Looking for negative accounts receivable, I know there's an issue there. That kind of stuff. But once I know at top level that those numbers don't line up, then we can kind of dig in. The why behind it is kind of like we talked about in the beginning. It's somebody's abdicated it. Somebody's kind of why did they come to us in the first place? They recognize their bookkeeper hasn't been performing the job that they said they would do.
Right. At what point, Brett, would you recommend, constant review, having that controller, having that review happen? We said, or at least monthly, right? You said, or recommended. But when do we hire that person? Like, what size company for a trade company, do they usually say, man, I need to get a grip on this, and the only way to do it is hire an expert?
The accountants love to say from day one. That's what I always hear. Yep. That's what I hear other accountants. But sure. I would ask. I had been to some Nexstar meetings. I'd ask the accountants, and they're like, "Hey, when do you guys go full accrual?" From day one, Brett. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, oh my gosh. full accrual. That's so much work. So if that people should rely, if you're a growing company, you should rely on your family members if you can to some point. If you have a spouse or someone in like college that can help and kind of gets it to get you going. I was listening to, if you're familiar with Ellen Rohr.
Sure.
She,
What price should I charge, or something like that?
where'd the
Yes.
money go? I think something like that, right?
Yeah, great book. Simple little book, and everybody should read it. If you're starting out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was talking a little bit about this the other day, and I was agreeing. I don't know what it was, simplifying something.
Nice.
When to make that transition? Again, that's what it was. She was saying, your mom. So your mom's created your chart of accounts, and yeah, that's what you've had for the last 5 years. Right now, is it time to change? So
Right.
if you're asking the question, it's probably time to change.
That's a good comment. If you are thinking about it, and I like that. Work it in house. Spouse, whatever, family member. But maybe send them to training, right? There's lots of online bookkeeping or QuickBooks courses. Any that you recommend, maybe, or want to stay out of
No,
that?
those sound horrible to me. I don't know. I've been through them and see them. I don't know. Give us a call. I'll give you an hour. I'll show you, like an hour
There you
how to
go.
be efficient. Give you the
There
chart of
you go.
accounts. That's what we should do: is create a chart of accounts you can download and kind of just shoot from there.
Yes,
But I would
just starting.
recommend, as a whole, ServiceTitan, House Call Pro, QuickBooks Online, some sort of receipt scanning service. We use Dext, DEXT. It's great. And then just someone to make sure the data is getting input.
That's a good one. DEXT for scanning physical receipts and getting them into QuickBooks.
Yeah.
Does it?
Invoices from your vendors, from Slakey Brothers or Johnstone, just have them emailed right in. It reads
Yep.
it. It reads it as from Johnstone. You can start learning the category and whether it's a bill or paid by the credit card or something like that. It makes it
Nice.
really
Nice. And it integrates with QuickBooks directly, Brent? Oh,
yeah.
sweet. Thank you.
There's a lot of different programs like that. We use Dext and like
I
it.
didn't even know. Didn't even know. Save us a whole bunch of
Boom.
time right there. It's worth it
There
right
you go.
there. Where do I send the gift card? Speaking of, where do they, if they want to hire you out or just ask you some questions, how do people reach you, Brent?
But the best way is our website, highvelocityaccounting.com. I couldn't have made it any longer. HIGH velocityaccounting.com. Right on there, you can book an appointment with me. And we usually go over an hour, just have a conversation, just talk about what's going on behind the scenes or in front of the scenes and where you want to be. And if we can help you, we extend our services. If not, I have some different options as well to help you get through bookkeeping or something like that.
Nice. I appreciate that. I'll let you close it out, Brett. Anything I didn't touch on that you feel is important that the audience needs to know, or just some closing remarks you want to end with? Or?
Mark, was this a fun podcast for you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I learned, that we're in the I call it the uncomfortable fields, right? So we're out of our business skill set, and we're into actually the most important thing, really, right? So it's all about numbers. I'm trying to learn more. You just gave us, Dext, so that's super awesome. I get to scan in receipts and stuff. But yeah, getting a better grip on numbers is what it's all about, right? Reviewing them regularly. I'm trying to
Having
get better at that myself. Trying to practice all the things we preach on this channel.
yeah, exactly. You nailed it on the head there.
Yeah.
Systems and procedures. I hear that a lot.
Yep.
It's just as true at the accounting level as well. Having a system and a process and a checklist and a follow up is important. And like I say, I think the biggest thing is just don't abdicate or thinking that it's just getting taken care of. Definitely, I read a few books. Once you kind of get this consistency going, there is a love for the numbers, especially when you're winning. But I heard this thing: people don't check their portfolio when they know the market's down,
Right.
but they're always looking in their portfolio when it's up.
I like it. Yeah, make
You
the
gotta,
numbers work.
if you're asking, you got to accept the answer. You got to look at it both ways and just make corrections.
Yeah, you got to get control of it. So and know what's happening and be able to forecast, right? So we didn't even talk about that, like seasonal forecasting, cash flow forecasting.
Yeah, it's a big
All
part
that.
of it. I think having a budget is the roadmap. And I'm not saying
Right.
that you don't have to beat yourself up over the budget, but we kind of talked about having that pace report. you take your budget with seasonality, recognizing what it takes for those jobs to happen, how many times the phone has to ring, kind of thing. Um, Build out a budget that is based on percentages. So we know autos 5%. We know payroll's 10%, right? So we build out our budget based on our gross revenue, based on seasonality, our highs and our lows. Then we have a roadmap for sure, and then you can check in on that, and that's part of what we do as well as the mission. You have your quarterly tax planning. You can have a projection, a forecast. Might have some tax law changing. I hear corporate that they want the initiative to get rid of the 21% corporate tax and go back to the 28% corporate tax. So, as you look down the road to how do we change things and maximize our dollar?
Yeah, the rates are always dancing around.
Right. And that's what you're playing in. Is playing in the margins. It's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You can't beat the market. If you can't beat the market owning your own business and you feel like you're really getting beaten up, probably should just play the market. Right?
Yeah.
Can't beat them, join them.
Time to look at something else maybe. But when you get those numbers, you get it all dialed in, then like you said, it's a lot of fun reviewing it every month. And do you see, Brett, that companies that have like maintenance programs, monthly or annual maintenance programs, that it helps their cash flow, it softens seasonal blows at all? Do you come across that at all?
Well, I think yes, all that. I laugh. My grandfather used to be in the was a mortician, and he'd always say the flower business was like the scourge of the mortuary business, right? Because it's like it's an evil necessary. You got to have them, but they're always in the way. The flowers are here and they're there, and you're cleaning them up, and it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah,
made that an add-on business, right? If you're in one, you should be in the other, maybe.
That didn't work for my gut. It was not good in the mortuary business. But having the memberships is tedious. Having that and being able to service it. However, obviously, it does make financial sense. Bringing in that dollars, covering either the off season or allocating it towards advertising and marketing. Just perfecting it, understanding what it is, and getting your employees to really, buy into it.
Yeah, it's a big thing in and of itself. So that's a good last comment there. Just perfecting it. It's a big thing, and getting everybody to buy in on it, and scheduling it so it's in like the off season, not you're busy. All those annual inspections and stuff. It can be a challenge without a doubt.
Yeah, our air conditioning unit went down here, and we bought a membership plan. Why not?
Yeah.
Come back here. And tell me before my furnace starts to have a hole in it. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our guy comes out twice a year. We've been paying for it for years. I think we put the system in like 10 years ago. So, and every year they might a little something, hey, this gizmo is not operating at peak performance, So opportunity for, customer retention, additional sales, reviews, case studies, all that good stuff.
Oh my. Yeah. As soon as you're done chasing down credit cards that didn't go through and
that could be a challenge. Yeah. So I'm not running that either. So, I talk a good game, but yeah, I don't know all the pain points that go along with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't want you to have to worry about that. Definitely go sell memberships. We'll take care of the accounting.
There you go. Any final words, Brett, or maybe a podcast or a book you recommend or anything?
I mean, I recommend your podcast, Mark. This has been great. I appreciate your time.
Tune in to the world's worst marketing podcast where we don't even talk about marketing. Yeah. Brett, you're awesome, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on the show, sir.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Brett. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
Thanks to all the listeners out there.